Welcome to BitBoy Crypto, the largest crypto community in all the interwebs. My name is TJ, and I'll be your host for today's episode of Around the Blockchain. Every weekday, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we come to you live with our favorite crypto people and personalities from around the blockchain to discuss the trending crypto topics of the day, as well as answer your most asked questions. We got a really good show lined up for you today with some really good guests. We've got everybody's favorite crypto mom, CryptoWendyO, joining us here today. Fresh off of his Tesla truck cancellation, we got BlockchainBoy in the bottom left-hand corner. A new face on the show today. We've got Arcane Bear joining us today, and the crowd favorite, back from vacation, fresh back from Miami, round 2, Ben Armstrong, bringing in with the bull runs give you wings signs. We're gonna have some really good times today. Got some really good topics. So big things we're talking today. We talked about it a little bit on the morning live stream. We're gonna go a little bit more in depth. Millennials in crypto. We just had a big article coming out with most millionaires, over half of them get half of their wealth is in cryptocurrency right now. So we're going to be talking about that. We're talking, will Africa follow the El Salvador and Latin America trend as all of this stuff goes on? Will they be second to join as South America is moving heavily towards Bitcoin? We've got South America now potentially joining us. And reasons Bitcoin will hit 60 or K plus. We've got Paul Tudor Jones coming out citing inflation, one of the biggest hedge fund managers of all time that previously had been fairly anti-Bitcoin, now saying you need to allocate at least 5% of all portfolios to Bitcoin to hedge against inflation. So that could be a major bullish signal as time goes on. We're going to be talking about all of that. So real quick, if you guys have seen this show before, you see those score hand boxes in the bottom right-hand corner. If you like what you're hearing from any of the guests, drop a +1 in the chat. I'll know to give them a point. As always, the links to all of these channels will be in the description below, so go show some of these guests that BitSquad love. But before we get into any of these topics, real quick, we're going to be jumping in and talking about the markets. Let's do a quick market watch. We've got Bitcoin coming in right now, just ticked up over 40,000 since we went live. It was hovering right at 39.8. Now we're at 40,185. I know we were talking Arcane Bear a little bit before the show. You said you had a couple charts pulled up that you thought were interesting that you wanted to share with us. So let's start it with you. Take it away. Let's see what you got.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for letting me jump in today, guys. We'll take a look here with Bitcoin. Now, this is a shorter time frame, a 1 hour at the moment. And there's been a lot of talk around the Wyckoff trading ranges. And generally speaking, what I like to do is start with kind of a micro perspective just to look at the day-to-day footprint. And everything's actually been looking quite good since we broke up above this area here around 38,000, headed towards the top of the trading range. Normally at this moment, we get a little bit of a backup. So I've also included this piece of content here, which I liked as well, showing this kind of falling range sentiment into a horizontal trading range before the breakup and into the box, kind of what we had witnessed over the last few days. So I think Bitcoin's actually looking really strong at this particular moment. Again, I like to go back up to a macro perspective and just remember how long it took to get here. So for those of you that don't know, on our channel, we love going over the Wyckoff stuff. We've been doing it for the last 2 years. This early stage accumulation channel that was taking place between early 2019 and 2020 was a really big indicator that we were going to see a lot of upside. But just for anyone that's new in the markets, recognizing, I think that these large macro perspectives of like 1,200 days of accumulation before the Bitcoin bull market starts is a really important thing to remember. We're like basically, I think, exactly halfway through this market. I do believe we're headed to about $150,000, $160,000 Bitcoin based off this nice stock to flow model. Again, this is a great way to represent our basically the engagement, I think, of the miners producing Bitcoin and the kind of the average cost of what it is to make a Bitcoin based off the electricity cost, the hardware, the mining, et cetera, as well. So I like to kind of look at these two different ideas because generally a lot of new people enter into the markets, enter here, they get a little concerned whether the price is gone down. And if you scroll back through time, Bitcoin has done this really beautiful thing where it's repeated these cyclical processes where you see one trading range and accumulate a multi-year accumulation range take place. Here it was 1,200 days throughout the trading range before the box exploded and went up. So generally, if you're new to the markets, I think it's really important to be patient. Think about that macro perspective and try to focus on value of investments more than just the price. Everybody shows up when the price is really high, but the best thing to do is be getting in these intermediary accumulation ranges. So back on that shorter time frame, if we keep continuing up and start to close above 43,000, we could see the continuation of this bull market start right away. I do believe that this is basically a reaccumulation after decline, which is another Wyckoff trading range. So I think this is the reaccumulation range that's taking place right here. So I'll just leave it short at that. There's a few other on-chain metrics we could go over later, but that's just kind of the simple format of where we've landed for today.
Yeah, so in your analysis, you would say we are in the accumulation range. This is probably a prime time for people to be accumulating Bitcoin specifically?
Yeah, I think in general, most new investors, like take Michael Saylor, for example, almost every month on like the 11th, he's like, I bought more Bitcoin today. I think people look too often to try to make quick gains instead of focusing on like going to the gym, where the best gains are made throughout time through consistency in your investment strategy. And this will play off the best for, I think, for everyone, whether you're an intermediary investor, advanced, or just getting new to the table. I think this is like the safest way to yield those big gains that everyone's interested in.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's really good advice, really good analysis. Wendy, I know going to the gym, doing some boxing, that's something you do, and you also preach consistency, dollar cost averaging. Anything on the charts that's catching your eye right now? I know Friday we had a lot of people feeling pretty bearish. It was a strong weekend. People seem to be feeling a little bit better now. Where do you see us in this range here? Still in accumulation?
To be honest, I really, really enjoyed Arcane Bear. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, yeah, that was correct.
Okay,
more like Arcane Bull, am I right?
Yeah, it didn't sound too bearish.
You know what? We're gonna call him Arcane Bull the rest of the show. I think that would be absolutely amazing. But he's actually seeing what kind of similar stuff to what I'm seeing, but he did a way better job than me, and I'm always happy to admit when somebody is better than me at something. But anyways, taking a look at my chart, we have successfully broken out of the vibe and consolidate range, and I'm actually targeting about $42,000. Once that is flipped, I totally agree with him, and I do think we will start to see some nice upward movement. But the really key area for me is going to be between about 42 to approximately 46,000, because when we really had that move from all-time high, we flipped 46,000 and then we ran. Even though, we did have about 99 days of ups and downs and whatnot, but realistically, this area of like $46,000 is super important to me. And if you take a look at the EMAs, I went ahead and added those on. Those are actually adding, showing you where the important areas of support and resistance are as well, that kind of coincide with my lines here. So I like what he's saying. I agree with it. And I'm just right now, I'm just taking a step back and watching. If you're interested in entering into the market, just dollar cost average, and do it safely. Do whatever you can afford to invest in. Don't do too much. Don't feel like you have to compete. It's not a race to compete with anybody. It's doing what works for you and your personal finances, and I think they will work out, especially if we're looking at Bitcoin.
Yeah, and speaking of personal finances, that actually brings up the next topic, which is millennials moving towards crypto. Now, we talked about it a little bit this morning. A millennial, I can't remember the exact age range, but it's early 80s to early 90s, I believe. I mean, you get different ranges depending on where you check, but mostly we were looking at that. It says over 57% say they don't have a retirement fund and they're looking at crypto as their retirement. 25% have over 50% of their wealth invested in cryptocurrency. I know I fall into that category as a millennial. Ben, I think you said you did as well. I know we're well over 50% of all of our assets, I would say, would be in crypto. But I'm curious to hear from the panelists here as we're seeing this kind of shift in psychology and mindset of the retail investor, that traditionally, like even the forward-thinking ones, they'd have a 401k or maybe a Roth IRA and they're putting little bits aside. Now we're seeing people say, forget that. That may work for my parents, but it's not working for me, which is the same experience I had. I had an account with probably 10 years from 18 to 28. It sat there, really didn't do hardly anything. And then about the time I found crypto, I was like, you know what, just liquidate that whole thing, put it all in crypto. And, I saw more in 6 months than I did in 10 years. So BlockchainBoy, you're one of the youngest of the group. You probably got your tap. You're, I guess, the Generation Z, the Zoomer generation, but I would imagine you've got a pretty good pulse on the millennials as well. So I'm curious to hear from you, like, obviously TikTok is a big driver of some of these investments, but like, where do you see the mindset of the new millennial investor today? I mean, are stocks just old news to all of them?
Well, first of all, I want it to be known I'm 100% in crypto, and I've been that way since like 2017. I'm fully in this. All my assets are in crypto. I think the mindset from younger investors is that the wealth is centralized to hell. We've seen basically the millennial generation be unable to attain affordable housing. that we're being priced out of the home market by these large corporations and boomers, essentially, with cash payments. I mean, houses are going for well over market value, full cash right now. And stocks, really, we've kind of had our eyes open to the cracks in the system and the stock market. We've, been alive now. I was born in 2001, so technically alive for 9/11, 2008 housing recession, and now obviously the COVID crash. So millennials especially have seen these stock crashes due to either manipulation or poor lending practices, and now with this inflation, it's going crazy. The mindset of young people is that they feel like their back is against a wall right now. They feel like there's really no way out. I mean, the wages being slowed for the middle class. I mean, wage growth has been slow for God knows how long, not even keeping up with inflation. People are really getting desperate, and crypto is a way out. That's really what it is. Crypto is seen as a way out of essentially a dead-end finance situation. I mean, realistically, if we didn't have crypto, I don't think a lot of these young people, these young millionaires, would be in the position that they are now. And the ones that are coming up through crypto, I don't know if there would be another alternative unless you really want to dive into stocks and start, aping into penny stocks. But it's really from a place of need, and they embrace it fully. Traditional finance is dead.
Yeah. No, I would agree with a lot of what you just said there. And Ben, I wanted to ask you this. We know millennials, they've got their handle on the internet. They know how to do internet marketing. They know social media. They know how to create digital awareness. Kind of a flip question. Do you think the millennials are responsible for a lot of these meme coins and trying to take advantage of Generation Z? Some of these people that they've got a little bit of money, they don't know, but we've got these good marketers out there creating these meme coins, trying to build on that TikTok hype. Do you see anything there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked me that question, because if you would have asked me the last question, BlockchainBoy took every single one of my points. So really, I was left naked with nothing to say.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
And just for the record, just so the chat knows, BlockchainBoy is not Ben's son. He's also not Samwell Tully from Game of Thrones, but we might use that next week. So.
Yeah,
but we get that a lot.
Yeah, favorite character. He's a great character on the show.
Never seen Game of Thrones. I don't have time for that BS.
Okay. Well, next time I think I might introduce
another
you
bath salts mention. Okay, nice. Okay, so listen, I think you're making a really good point, because I actually this weekend Netflix. I was watching some stuff on Netflix, and I don't know if you guys have seen this Money Explained series. They've got a Bitcoin on the thumbnail, so I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out. They talked about some interesting stuff. They really talked a lot about the crypto queen. I don't know if you guys know who she are. What am I, a pirate? Who she is. I can't remember her name, but she basically stole like $1 billion in the one token or one coin Ponzi scheme, and she disappeared. I can't remember her name, but anyways, they were talking about pump and dumps and Telegram groups where they pump stuff up and all this stuff. And one of the things that the whole thing wasn't about crypto, but basically they were talking about the idea of the get rich quick scheme and the idea of, one of the first notable ones was a guy who sailed over, I think in the 1700s, to the Caribbean, and he came back and he made a pamphlet about the greatest island ever known to man that was like out there in the Caribbean, and he made it up. There was no island out there, and he sold all of these pamphlets on people going to get rich. It has the greatest fruit you've ever seen, and it's in like some people's DNA to kind of be like the get rich quick scheme and just try to do everything easy. I always think like scammers are always so smart. Like, that's the funny thing about it. The ones that are successful is like they could be much more successful, like actually doing something positive with their skills. And this brings me to, your Tai Lopez's, your Grant Cardone's, your I'm trying to think of everybody else they showed in that video. Dan Locke, and who was the fourth one? I can't remember the fourth one. But these are guys that, like, look, I would put Grant Cardone maybe in a slightly different category than those other guys. But where they make their money, and I tell people this all the time, the easiest way to make money online is to tell people how to make money online. And all of those guys have mastered that. What has Tai Lopez actually done? Like, look, he may have done a lot of stuff. I know who he is.
You're in my garage.
You see,
with my Lamborghini
knowledge. I personally can't tell you one actual accomplishment that man has other than selling things. And I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying that's his image. And so, yes, that's a long way for me to bring it around to say there are a lot of people that are millennials that grew up with the internet that do have this mindset, that know how to make money, telling people how to make money. And the meme coin thing fits perfectly with that. And I think if you were to like really untangle that whole thing and look who the top people are in these meme coins, we may be surprised that maybe people we know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
it
saying.
could be people from crypto Twitter, you know, or well,
Yeah,
hey,
I'm sure it is.
well, blockchain
Is that
boy,
why Hex is worth so much?
yeah, somebody was talking about that on the stream earlier. Well, you weren't here last. I think it was Thursday or Friday while you were out of town. Blockchain boy actually named one of those meme coins. You know, he apologized to all of us, but you know,
He did.
Yeah, I did.
he named
a-
one of those
You know
ones
what?
that
At least they're trying.
yeah.
They're trying.
Listen.
They want a
Here's what I
viable
have to
product.
say about it. Here's what I have to say about this for Blockchain Boy. He's had a lot of success, but I think naming that coin was probably his seminal moment.
Oh, don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that. Please don't
But
tell
all
me
right,
that, dude.
let's bring it back. Let's bring it back around. Last question before we move on. I wanted to ask Wendy, like, at Bitcoin 2021, Michael Saylor was talking about real estate and ownership and assets and things like that. And he was talking about when somebody passes down an estate from a father to a son, like with the kids involved, like what's the first thing they want to do? They want to sell the house and get the money. So same question now. We've got these baby boomers control a large percentage of the world's, or especially the United States, wealth. Like, if as those tick over and get passed down to their children, do you think they will want to keep that money in stocks, or are they going to be looking to liquidate things, get exposure to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and other things like that over the next several years?
I may be the wrong person to ask this question because I grew up very, very poor, and I'm also very sentimental. So if I was to get left something, I would probably leave it. Like if I was to get left a property, I would probably live in it, or I would probably keep it, or keep it in the family, because how I grew up and where I came from, owning property was a big deal. It was the American dream. It's what everybody strived to do. And one of the reasons why I've decided to buy a property is because that's what I grew up around. That was like making it, is when you're actually able to own a house. But I think other people may have different values than me, and that's okay. And they may have different ideologies, and that's okay too. And I feel that the current generation, they might want to go ahead and take those properties or take those assets that were given to them and flip them so that they can take that money and then buy their own home or buy their own assets. And that's okay too. But personally for me, if somebody's leaving me a house, I'm going to keep it in the family, because as you guys know, property is getting to be so expensive, and it's starting to feel a little bit unattainable for anybody. I just recently purchased a home, and the only reason I was actually able to purchase this home was not because of crypto, was because I was a homeowner prior, and I was able to sell it and make really almost double my money and use that money as a down payment. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and I think you summed it up well. Like, it's different. It'll work differently for different people, but you know, like, you can only speak to what you would do yourself. So that's a perfect way to answer it. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about Africa potentially following Latin America in the surge for Bitcoin adoption. We've seen El Salvador has been in the news the most the last week or two with adding Bitcoin as legal tender. Now they're supposed to be adding a lot to their treasury reserves. At the top of the show, Arcane Bear, you mentioned incentives, right? Or the need, the stronger the need is, the quicker the action and the stronger the result. So I want to ask you, do you think we'll start to see Africa, you know, coming in stride right behind the South or the Latin American countries, as far as like which do you feel like has a greater need for a stabilized economy? Is it South America or Africa?
Well, so the fun quote I think that reminds me of is, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Just in almost any general industry, we're driven by incentives from basic human life. It usually starts at survival, and outside of that, I think everything is a fair amount of privilege. Now, one of the unique things that both Africa and Central America have in common is that they have a lack of infrastructure. So I live here in Costa Rica. I've got a small 2.5 acre farm, and we just got fiber optic ran out here in 2019. And my fiber optic cable runs through my lemon trees. So I'm allowed to do something that you could basically never do in a first world country, which is put up a fiber optic cable, just run through my trees sporadically. And that lack of infrastructure really allows for a speed and a convenience to take over. So for instance, in Africa, the mobile payments took over like very quickly because everybody had a cell phone, and instead of having all these landlines, they just skipped ahead. I think a really good way to look at it is, I don't know if anyone's been to Bali or if you've been to a country where the infrastructure has been in place for a long time. It's hard to edit those roads. It's hard to make new changes and develop the infrastructure. Whereas if you have no infrastructure in certain places like Africa or in Central America, your speed to adoption is so much faster because you don't have to replace or jump over the old monopolies of that infrastructure that's in place to begin with. So I think out of all these countries, they're making a really intelligent decision because it allows them to step over a lot of the current problems that the infrastructure that we've built in the first world countries is having. And I've seen prime examples of that by living here. Now, one of the fun parts, again, is just that once you see a strong signal like nation states potentially maybe trading deficits or settling deficits in Bitcoin, it's going to be a huge signal to the market that this is better and faster and cheaper than the SWIFT system. And if one country and another country decide to settle a deficit in Bitcoin, it's going to be huge. Now, the internal infrastructure for the day-to-day person, I think that's always been the highlight for me of this sector. Like when I first started buying Bitcoin back between $90 and $1,000. Well, I was always very altruistic. Like, this technology can bring the banks to the people. Just this small microfinancing. You get altruistic about what the technology can do because we see that there's a lot of problems in the world, and that it's possible. It would just be really interesting to see how that develops, because I think the strongest signal for Bitcoin that we would see would be these deficits. Like if they started to close out oil or, like, let's say lemon deals and close it out in Bitcoin instead of using the US SWIFT system. So I think we see a really strong signal in that these countries are starting to adopt. They'll be able to adopt faster, like step over top most of the countries who have already have that infrastructure in place. So I mean, if anyone's going to be able to do it, these are the countries who will take off the fastest.
Yeah, no, that's great analysis. You said you're in Costa Rica?
Yes, I'm on the southwest side of Costa Rica. I've got a little 2.5 acre farm. I grow everything from avocados and ayahuasca out here. I've been out here for about 8 years.
Yeah, no, I heard
lemons.
And lemons.
Yes,
and
lemons. Yes,
Yeah.
I have one key lemon tree that holds my fiber optic cable in place.
That's hilarious. Well, there were some interesting rumors about some potential big news coming out of Costa Rica, which we haven't heard anything of yet. But I've been keeping my eye on that. So I actually followed the president.
Yeah, I've heard some background industry whispers in talks with founders of companies. Like, just again, even if you remove Bitcoin, which I'm a strong believer that Bitcoin will be our collateral layer, the DeFi sector itself, the opportunity to be able to get into early seed stage companies, like the opportunity right now for millennials or anybody in this new decentralized format is absolutely astronomical. Like the upside here in everything is still like asymmetric, right?
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of potential, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens when these countries do start adopting.
Yeah, and when did you first start buying? What year was it? You said $90 without to.
So just to clarify, the first Bitcoins I bought were at $90 because we were getting a discount on servers. I'm of that. Yeah, we know how to sell stuff online. We had a bunch of servers we were paying for, and they were like, we'll give you half price if you pay with Bitcoin. And this was, in 2011, around $90. And then in 2013, in the Cypritic crash, when Cyprus started to crash and Bitcoin went up to around $1,000, that's when I made my first kind of rookie mistake and bought what was then the all-time high of like $800 to $900 and started studying. But that was the first time I really understood, oh, this is a money we can choose. It's not controlled by the governments. Like, we decide that this is our money. That to me was like a huge light switch went off. And I'm like, okay, I'm in this for a while now.
Well, and that's just something really good to keep in mind for those of you at home. This is somebody that's been buying Bitcoin since 2011, talking about buying the top back then. And he's on here saying you're still early. Like, we're still really early in this development. We haven't seen anything yet compared to what's possible. So, like, if you just discovered Bitcoin 3 months ago, 3 years ago, a year ago, and you're just trying to get your head around all this stuff, like, don't worry. There's plenty of time. You're still early too. But Ben, I wanted to hear from you on this. We know Cardano's really strong in Africa, and they've got a lot of different partnerships already with countries down there, Ethiopia being one of them. Do you think we could see, and we talked about potential other coins other than Bitcoin and Lightning Network, which El Salvador is using. Do you think we could see a strong push for Cardano coming out of these African nations, or do you think it'll still be Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, of course they're laying down roots there. Cardano is laying down roots and making partnerships and, deals with some countries over there. And I think there is the potential for you know, it to do very well over there. I think that the Bitcoin, I wonder what the awareness is there of the average person of Bitcoin. I think that's a big question.
A little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So realistically, it only takes 10% of a population to reach critical mass, and about 33% of Nigerians use Bitcoin nearly every day. I mean, that's something I've looked into a little bit. And now, putting aside the fact that a lot of this is from scams, Lagos is like the scam capital of the world, and cryptocurrency is kind of what they're using. The public awareness is huge. You know, necessity, like Arcane Bear was saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And when you're in a country that is as unstable as a lot of these like African countries are, and your centralized currencies are complete, you know, crap, and your politicians are corrupt, where do you turn, right? Bitcoin is the clear answer, and I think that they already know that. It's just the entire like first world is we're such in a bubble, right? Like I'm from, like, shout out to Greece, you know, I'm a dual citizen of Greece and America. People outside of the US, right? They have a whole different worldview. I feel like United States and first world countries, they don't realize what's going on in countries where there's you know, an unstable economic and political system. Bitcoin is a popular alternative. I mean, just see for yourself. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And we did have a stat here that the peer-to-peer trading in Africa is up 50% from this time last year, May of last year, compared to May of this year. So we do know that they are trading it, you know, locally between person to person. So kind of to echo the sentiment of what both Arcane Bear and BlockchainBoy have said, does it, where there's a need, that's going to drive the adoption and the kind of innovation? Do you think, Ben, we'll see innovation come out of, or actually, let me throw this one to Wendy. Wendy, do you think we'll see the innovation being driven from second and third world countries rather than first world countries?
100%. Their laws and regulations are a lot different than ours in the United States. One of the biggest barriers to entry when it comes to cryptocurrency and blockchain is laws and regulations, because we are not given defined laws. We have a big gray area. When we want to pay our taxes, we can no longer do so with H&R. When we want to go ahead and purchase cryptocurrency, you can't do so in New York. You're very limited what cryptocurrencies you can buy. If you want to margin trade, you cannot do so. And then if you want to create a cryptocurrency project, you have to go file for that. You have to pay a lot of money. You have to pay attorneys, all those types of things, which is if you want to form a regular LLC, you don't have to do that. So the amount of red tape in the United States is going to be very hard, and we've seen this. We saw El Salvador come into play. They stepped up. They said, okay, mining could be a problem with Bitcoin for the environment, so we're going to go ahead and use 100% safe geothermal energy via volcanoes. So we're seeing people make money moves in other countries, and one of the reasons why they're doing this, they want to kind of improve their economies. They want to improve the quality of life of people that are living there, and they want to attract people with money to come live there. Arcane Bear, you live in Costa Rica, correct?
Yes, in Costa Rica.
What enticed you to go to Costa Rica? Where did you come before that, and what enticed you to go? And I don't want to take up too much time, but I just kind of want to prove a point here.
No, this is interesting. Go ahead.
A distaste for government and an enjoyment of less rules, regulations. Specifically, again, you can legally take psychedelic mushrooms here. I can grow all these avant-garde plants and nobody cares. So less regulation.
Okay. And where did you come from originally?
I grew up in Canada, in British Columbia, and I left there by the time I was 18. I was pretty much gone permanently at that point. So I've been gone for almost 14 years.
Okay, so that just proves, just with one person, that just proves my point that we go where we're treated best. And sounds like you had different ideologies, that you wanted to go ahead and go somewhere where you were going to be able to kind of live how you wanted to live, or support the way that you wanted to live. Is that correct?
Yes, we have. So as a Canadian, we have favorable banking and tax laws. If you leave Costa Rica, or if you leave Canada for X amount of days, you bank and you do all your business offshore, you don't have to pay taxes on that income the same way you would. And the United States citizens don't have it as easy. You guys have FACTA. So no matter where you go in the world, no matter what revenue you earn, you have to pay the IRS money effectively. Whereas as a Canadian, there's a really kind of easy loophole to get out of that by living in creating a residence somewhere else and banking offshore.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this,
Right, and
it's so bad at this point. We have a company, my company, Kryptonite, Bank of America has frozen our accounts like 3 times because we have crypto in the name. It is getting ridiculous. Banks are so anti-crypto. It is ridiculous. They know what a threat it is. They don't trust anything that has crypto, blockchain in the name, and it's clearly evident in their actions. I mean, some people in my community, they can't make bank purchases in crypto anymore. They just block it straight up. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's getting absurd, and the bank's control is absolutely getting out of hand. But let's move on to the last topic here. I want to talk about with the big story today. Paul Tudor Jones, a major hedge fund investor, many would say one of the most successful of our time, previously had come out and he'd made a lot of strong statements and principles and written papers that seemed and sounded like he backed up Bitcoin, but never would come out and say it. When asked about Bitcoin, would say, no, he's not really sure about it. He's got to do more research, got to learn about it. But recently came out with an article not too long ago saying that he was a fan. Now today saying he thinks everybody should hold at least 5%. You know, the title of the video today is Greatest Reason Bitcoin's going to hit 60K, and a lot of that has to do with inflation. Inflation has been the word that all of these big companies have been kind of scared to talk about. Big media is scared to talk about. The Fed, like nobody wants to admit there was inflation. Then all of a sudden a few weeks ago, it seems like left and right every major news site started acknowledging inflation is here and inflation is coming, and it's set in and it's here for a while. So BlockchainBoy, being from Greece, you've experienced inflation before, so I want to hear from you a little bit on your take on inflation and how quick it can set in and how real it is for a lot of people that say like, oh no, we're not experiencing inflation. I mean, it's kind of getting hard to deny at this point, but just talk to a little bit of some of the stuff you may have seen in your past or maybe some of your family's experienced.
So keep in mind, they sell drachma, the old Greek currency, on the side of the street now for like a couple bucks, a couple euros. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I feel like if Greece didn't get kind of welcomed and bailed out by Germany, it would be in a much worse place at this point. So at least there's some stability with the euro. But yeah, no, I remember very clearly. I was in Greece with my uncle, and you can only take out. I think he was only able to take out like 60 euros from the bank that day, and there's these long lines of people at the bank. Because people don't trust the banks, they want to get their money out of there, right? When my family are jewelers, and so they've always been kind of inclined to gold, and I'm finally getting my father to accept that Bitcoin is digital gold, because he was a naysayer for a long time, coming from the world of if it's not physical, you can't have it. But in Greece, nobody trusts the government. Nobody trusts, nobody wants to pay their taxes because they don't trust what the government's going to do with those taxes. Everything's corrupt. If the euro wasn't there, the inflation would be as bad as Zimbabwe. They literally have a guy who stands on the corner of every street in Greece, like at the big shop areas. And when they see the tax guy coming, they have they call and all the business owners to get the value-added tax receipts, right? And because they're trying to dodge their taxes, it's getting so bad to where they send the government sends the tax guys to the islands in Paros or wherever you are, and they'll have a guy waiting at the end of the port, and when they see the guys coming, they'll call and say, tax guys here. Nobody wants to pay their taxes. I really think Greeks should discover what Monero is. Right now, the U.S. is printing just a ridiculous amount of money, and it's going to take 3 to 5 years for that inflation to be kind of felt in the market as a whole, but we're already seeing prices skyrocketing. I think in New York, food prices up like 6 to 8% already. Lumber is skyrocketing. Used car market is at an all-time high. I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous right now, and I don't want to see what happened in Greece happen in America. So that's my 2 cents on the issue.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. Now, all right, Mr. Cool Guy and the Demon, let's make sure this can work. Yeah, okay. It seems like it's cutting in and out, so I want to get you while you've got some decent service there. So
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you just fine. So,
oh, great. Okay, fantastic.
I wanted to ask you about have you ever experienced or what your experience was like going to the bank and them telling you can't have access to your own money? Anything you want to share on that?
Oh yeah, that pisses me off. Nothing makes me more angry. And I've thrown more fits for sure over the fact that I have all this money and I can't spend it. And it has been such a trial trying to actually get, accounts to where I can spend my own money. And it always boils down to the fact, this is the thing that drives me the craziest. Sir, it's for your protection. The F it's not. It is not. No, it's not for my protection. I know what my protection is. If I want to go and buy something for my protection, I couldn't even buy it because the bank tells me I can't. So it's really frustrating, but I want to share something while we're on inflation that I watched last night. And I actually took I took a clip of this. I just recorded it on my TV. So this was WSB last night, Channel 2 in Atlanta. Basically, they had a part on the regular local news where they were explaining inflation. And they were saying, well, it's pretty bad. It's the highest rate it's been in some time. We don't know what's going to happen. And then the news guy comes on and says, but thankfully, economists believe they pinpointed exactly why we have inflation right now and why it'll get better. And I kid you not, with a straight face, this guy said, well, due to the pandemic, now people are, due to it basically being over, is what he was implying, now people are out spending money and restaurants haven't had time to take that money yet and turn it into new employees. That was literally what they said is going on right now. And if we just give it a few months, it will all straighten out. Wow. Like, how can you with a straight face say that? Like, that's insane.
I have no idea.
It's just transitory inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just because we haven't spent enough money yet, so more people can spend more money.
Right.
I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what? How in the world can somebody pass this off as this is real? And this is just on my local news. So it's crazy. Like, no mention of the fact we just print money whenever we want to. I mean, that is the core issue. And that is the reason why this bull run should be more massive than any bull run we've ever seen before. And when it's not, you got to ask yourself the question why. Because the very use case of Bitcoin is being made right in front of our very eyes.
Yeah, and it's getting made in a big, dramatic way all across the world. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these things develop over the next several months. Because, like you said, like, it's things on a fundamental level are more bullish than they've ever been. I mean, we've even got some kind of the on-chain stuff they've got here. You know, 7-month low for Bitcoin deposits. We got ETH 2.0 contracts up at an all-time high. I mean, we've got 22% of the U.S. dollar that's circulating right now has been printed since 2020. That should tell you enough right there alone. So those are some of the major things pushing us towards inflation. We've got major investors now that have kind of like BlockchainBoy just alluded to, old traditional people that want hard gold. They want something tactile, something they can feel. Like, they're starting to get it now. They're starting to say, okay, like I'll put 5% in this Bitcoin thing. Let me give it a shot. So
boomers are getting wise.
Yeah, they are. Well, they've seen a lot. That's one thing that's really interesting to me, to see those points in time when boomers that have done a lot of investing over the years start to like the March 12th, 2020. That was a big day for a lot of people. The first day the stimulus checks hit in the U.S., that was a big day for a lot of people. And when they see kind of watershed moments like that, like, free money in my bank account for no reason multiple times, like, maybe I should start looking into some of this other stuff and see what's going on. But Arcane Bear, were you trying to jump in there a second ago? Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, sure. There's a few points I wanted to go over. First off, I think one of the points is the unique battle between the inflationary process of them printing money and the kind of inherently deflationary process of things like internet or the blockchain, kind of adding a more inclusive level playing field for everyone, really increasing the groundswell of people that, like, I mean, even for instance, for myself, a channel with 36,000 people, this is because there's been this proliferation of technology that has really allowed more and more people to participate in active things like media. In the early 1990s, I could have never had my own channel. Like, you need like a 250-foot tall ham radio tower or something. But so we've got deflationary forces in the background of the technology side, and the inflationary forces coming off from what they're printing. So we've got a few charts here just to quickly go over. I think you guys will find fun. So this is the consumer price index for all urban consumer goods across the city averages since 2002 to 2020, and it's done nothing but gone vertical. Same with the last few months here. Just for the CPI index for food based, we've gone from 250 to 275, so almost up 12%.
In how many months?
Kind of to reach a little. Pardon?
How many months was that?
This chart is just the last 2 months. So if we go
2
back,
months.
you can see the
Wow.
yellow part highlighted in the last, I think it's the last quarter of 2020
That's
so far.
insane.
So the first 3 months effectively. So a noticeable
Arcane
increase.
Bear,
But
really quickly, can we short these charts? Is there a platform we can go ahead and open a fat 100 times
yes,
short?
right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is to some degree the asymmetry we've seen in the markets in general. So this is the S&P 500, and ever since they started their quantitative easing back here at the financial crisis of 2008, we've gone pretty much straight up. Like if you scroll in and you look at the, I mean, this little white circle here is this was the crash of the pandemic, right? It's almost not even noticeable on that longer time frame. And again, ever since they've been printing, we've gone straight up. And I've been arguing for a market melt up instead of a market breakdown. When they're printing innumerable amounts of capital, it floods into every asset layer, right? So whether it's Bitcoin or the stock market, the NASDAQ is at new all-time highs today. Again, the S&P 500 just peaked into new all-time highs. The volatility index is consistently dropping, so we're seeing more and more consumers like become comfortable with their spending. And then here's the dollar chart since the 1970s, which has just only gone down. We know that the US dollar's like ability to purchase something has been nothing but decreasing. And in the traditional markets, again, even though this isn't Bitcoin, you can see that since they started their quantitative easing and their printing here in the financial crisis of 2008, we've only gone up. Like this is just this massive market melt up. So we're in this weird place where price and value are at a total mismatch, right? There's not necessarily that these things are worth that much. It's that the US dollar is worth that little. And just kind of a final comparison here. When I first moved to Costa Rica back here around 2009 to where we are today, we're up 25%. We were at 487 colones, which is our local currency, all the way up to 619 where we are today, or where I have some friends in India. They're looking at a 40 to like 9,000 rupiah per dollar. Now it's at 14,000. That's almost a 36% inflation in the last 10 years in their local currencies too. So we're just seeing this mark across the board of basically inherently inflationary processes due to money printing and the degradation where all asset prices go up because they're the only things that have an intrinsic value. I think a minimum of 5% of Bitcoin in your portfolio is smart, and I'm much more weighted to the higher side than that. But just in general, we're looking at this potentially runaway inflation in every single asset. You know, it's likely all assets will continue to go up over the next few years because of this.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. And something I feel like a lot of people don't realize is this printing started back in 2008 in the first financial collapse. They started these, what they called it, quantitative easing, and they've just been ramping it up and ramping it up and ramping it up ever since. All of that was coming to a head in 2019. There was going to be an issue, a crash, so to speak, and they needed to kick the things into overdrive, and that's what we've seen all throughout 2020, 2021 is everything that they were printing going back into overdrive. That's what's been causing this hyperinflation, and as I think we all kind of can attest to, sending all sorts of asset and commodity prices through the roof, whether it's real estate, Bitcoin, food, lumber, paint, anything you can imagine. It's all going up, or the dollar's going down, which I think you just outlined really well there. So really appreciate having everybody on the show today. We had a really good time, really good discussion. That's all we have time for today. It looks like Arcane Bear, we're going to start calling you Arcane Bull. Arcane Bull is the winner today, so you've got 30 seconds to leave the audience with a parting message before we take off. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, just as a heads up, the reason we went with Arcane Bear is the bears are the ones that usually show up and they forage and accumulate for those when everything's low and kind of nothing's going on. So I like the idea of the accumulator, the forager who goes through and gets as many assets in their forage while they can. Thank you guys for allowing me to come on the show and giving me a space to chat and join you. I had a lot of fun today. You can find me on YouTube. It says Arcane Bear. Big shout out to Ben, TJ, Wendy, and BlockchainBoy. It's great chatting with you all today as well. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And like he mentioned, the link to his channel is down in the description below, guys. He's a really good channel, lots of great insights, as I'm sure you guys heard today. So go down there, follow the link, smash the like, subscribe to him, show him that BitSquad love. We'll have to have him back in the future. This is a really good time. We got about 8,000 people watching.
BitSquad family.
If we could get about 3,000 likes, we'd really appreciate it. Leave us a comment with some questions that you'd like, or topics you'd like to see us cover, or any guests you'd like to see in the future. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. We're out.